Sex is the life force energy that runs through us all. Can you use sexual energy for your spiritual evolution? Or perhaps for emotional healing? Is it even possible? Clinical sexologist Dr. Agata Loewe will explore all these and more on Eros Evolution on Om Times Radio.
Welcome to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. This is Dr. Agata Loewe. I'm a clinical sexologist based in Singapore, and my company is called Eros Coaching. That's eroscoaching.com. Today we are going to be talking about sex positivity in Poland, and we are with Agata Loewe. She is the founder of Sex Positive Institute in Poland, which is an international institution. Her goal is to create a safe space where sex can be learned and experienced in a safe, consensual, responsible, and conscious way. Agata tries to incorporate all kinds of sex teachings under one big multidisciplinary umbrella of sexology. Space where tantra practitioners can meet BDSM and kink communities, or LGBTQIA and polyamorous constellations. They exchange experiences between professionals and enthusiasts of sex who don't get any formal sex education. This initiative is quite unusual for Europe and especially predominantly Christian Catholic Poland. Agata Loewe. She is a clinical cross-cultural psychologist, systemic family psychotherapist, and PhD in human sexuality. She's the founder of Sex Positive Institute in Poland, sex positive activist, advocate, and educator. And you can find out more about her by going to her website, Agata Loewe. Actually, the correct pronunciation is LOEWE.com, and her website is her Sex Positive Institute website is sexpositiveinstitute.pl. And let's welcome Agata.
Hi Martha, nice to hear you.
Hi. Yeah, the first time we tried to have this show, for some reason the connection didn't work and the call kept dropping out. So after about 20 tries, we gave up. And I'm very glad that technology is working right now and we can have our show today. So we have been in communication for quite some time, and we both studied under the Sex Coach Institute, and that's how I got to know her fabulous work that she's doing in Poland. So tell us more about yourself and your expertise.
Hi Martha again, but you forgot to mention, because you were the graduate at San Francisco Institute for Advanced Studies of Human Sexuality just before I got there. So so I heard about you when you were already working, and I was just starting to learn at the time.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's a great honor to be hosted by you tonight. I mean, we're in different time zones. It's 10 p.m. in Poland. And basically what you already said, I think covers most of what I'm doing at the moment. For some time, I was involved in many initiatives, many NGO work. At the same time, I was completing my credentials to become a psychotherapist and sexologist. So at the moment, I am working in private practice as well. My expertise, or the field that is like the area of my main interest, is something called GSD, which is gender and sexual diversities. I would think that LGBTQIA, BDSM, fetishism, poly, and tantra umbrella, it doesn't incorporate all the options there are for people, especially when people, for example, self-identify as heterosexual. I would say that in Poland you are either or, which means that you either go on the other side, which is the other side is considered wrong one, or you're like in the, let's call it, so in Poland we have this option of trying to describe exactly what is norm and what is pathology. So the norm would be heteronorm, basically. So, which is kind of conservative, which is kind of traditional. And for many people, I work mostly with people in ages, the range is between 20, 45, I would say. So I would say that there's not too many options for this population to develop unless you have a sexual problem, dysfunction, or some kind of unhealthy something. Then there's no way for you to find spaces where you can actually develop your own sexuality. So our main goal when we started creating Sex Positive Institute was not to start talking to people who have problems, or we all have problems, obviously, but it was more about trying to reach people who are okay with themselves, but they're very curious about themselves and they want to go further. They want to dig deeper within their own self-discovery or finding their new pathways, try to find new ways to stay enthusiastic about their relationships, also not only sexual relationships, but also with other people. So that's how it started. And at the moment, I think we're pretty interesting place in Poland because we're based in Warsaw, which is the capital city of Poland, which is also, unfortunately, it means that the rest of Poland doesn't have access to as many events as happen in Warsaw. So there's this kind of area of privilege that we have. But at the same time, like in smaller Polish cities, many people are still very ashamed, or they don't find the need to learn more about their sexuality. It's more about basic life stuff, but not necessarily sex. It's still considered something shameful, something guilt-linked. Pleasure is not something that you are searching for. Pleasure is something, outside of the box. And sex positivity is all about being outside of the box.
So it's all very interesting what you're sharing. I thought for listeners, maybe if you could explain a little bit what LGBTQIA means.
Sure.
Yeah, we're familiar with it, but some listeners might not.
LGBTQIA is a term for the movement for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, or intersex and asexual populations, which is what we usually say, not to mention all those letters or to write them down, non-heterosexual population, or people who declare that they have interest in more than one sex or gender, either emotionally, romantically, or none, or no sex or no gender at all, which is also out of binary system, kind of.
Great. Thank you for that. How about BDSM for you? What does that mean?
BDSM is, I didn't know I would be, it's like a test now.
Just in your own words, it doesn't really matter.
Because in my own words, when I'm doing lectures, I'm always saying it's like the old term from sadomasochism, but it's also obviously not. It's something which is very popular now after 50 Shades of Grey, but it's like I would call it the biggest sexual minority, which is not minority anymore, but it's a group of people who are interested in relationships based on domination and submission, or for example, B stands for bondage, D for discipline, D and S in the middle is for domination and submission, and SM for sadomasochism. So it's basically 4 letters, but it incorporates 6 different visions, or it's even linked to sexual practices or sexual dynamics within people or constellations or couples. but it's also like it comes under a bigger umbrella of terms, which is kinky community, which in my words, I would say it's people who are looking for unusual sex, like put some effort into creating their own safe space or sex space. So it's not vanilla, it's more conscious in a way that it's more thought about how to make your sex more pleasurable or adventurous, let's say. So, and this is like when you talk about, let's say, gay, lesbian, bisexual community in Poland, it's kind of visible at the moment. But BDSMers, it stays still in the underground. It's very much marginalized, and many people don't admit that they are a part of this. We call it a scene of people who practice it. People are afraid that once you'll be caught in, like, let's say, dungeon, people will know who you are and they can use it against you. So it's like there's good sex and sex that is forbidden or taboo, let's say. But we know after 50 Shades of Grey that it's not like this anymore. And more people come to me both for workshops. I'm not doing the workshops, I'm just organizing them. I have amazing teachers who are very experienced in the matter. But when they come for consultations like sex therapy or psycho space, it's usually people who are in a lot of shame and guilt that they have this kind of needs in their sex life, because there's no sex education for people who are, let's call it, outside of norm. And norm is more like building a family and staying in monogamous relationship. And in Poland, are we coming with the break?
Yeah, we have a break, and we'll talk more about the environment in Poland after this break. Very interesting, fascinating stuff.
Thanks.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Are you ready to shift your energy, consciousness, and limiting beliefs? Join me, Shefali Burns, every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Shifting with Shefali here on Om Times Radio. Shift the blocks, limitations, and negative energies that have kept you from experiencing a life filled with joy, peace, love, abundance, and happiness. Are you ready to shift with Shefali? Are you ready to shine your brilliance?
Come heal yourself. What is healing? Healing is nothing but connecting with your all-knowing higher self that already has solutions to all your problems and is always there to guide you. Through this show, we help you to connect with that you are and tap into that innate potential you have to transform your life and fly high. Please join me, your host Monica Goyal, every Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific. Namaste.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. Today we are talking about how my friend and colleague, Dr. Agata Loewe, that's the correct name of pronouncing her family name, is bringing sex positivity to Poland. And for the last 7 years, she has been working in NGOs dealing with creating equal opportunities for gender and sexual diversity's representatives, people at risk of social exclusion, and the promotion of mental, physical, sexual, and reproductive health in various organizations. Her specialization is consciousness rising and expertise in GSD, which she mentioned just now, is gender and sexual diversity. Gender and sexual diversities. She's also a member of the advisory of Scientific Council of MSM, that's male who have sex with other male, at the National Center of AIDS for AIDS. She conducts and organizes international workshops and trainings for professionals in fields of help, like psychology, education, sexology, coaching, and coaching studies, etc. She also does it for enthusiasts of self-discovery, which she mentioned just now, as well as specialist courses in sexuality for people working with human sexuality. And you can find out more about her by going to sexpositiveinstitute.pl. So welcome back to the show, Agata.
Hi again.
So just before break, you were talking about a lot of people being very shy to come out with wanting to learn and be educated with regards to sexuality for fear of negative repercussions, like people who are interested in kink and practicing of BDSM, bondage, domination, sadomasochism, basically power play. So are there any real consequences? I'm curious about that.
Well, you're asking about me or in general?
Yeah, in general, in Poland.
I think that like we can talk a lot about 50 Shades of Grey as a book that has not really literary value. I mean, in my opinion, but it opened up people to start to experience more or to search for different scenarios for their sex life. So at the moment, I would say that it, like, as long as BDSM is pink or with feathers or it's kind of light, sensual play, it's acceptable. But there's still many stereotypes about what is really masochism, what is really sadism, and how far should it go. So I believe that with the work that we are doing, I mean, many people, when they hear that we are organizing workshops like that, they are always like, oh, what do you do at those workshops? The people are hanging from the walls and being flogged and chained to something. And it's not really like that. It's a lot of fun. But I can imagine that imagination works is the biggest aspect of stereotypes in this field. So again, I live in Warsaw and I'm surrounded by pretty open-minded people, and I usually spend time with my own bubble, which means with people who either were by my side when I was doing this whole sex education, or people who are in the same kind of business, I would say, sex educators, sex coaches, psychotherapists who also work with human sexuality. So it's really hard for me to say how it is in the outside world. I only know it from my clients, but they're also a specific group of people who do experience a lot of stigmatization, which is linked to either their sexuality, their gender, their sexual orientation. It's not easy to be out when you're different from the mainstream population. Like Poland, for example, is predominantly white, Catholic, monogamous, etc., etc. So any kind of difference, either it's ethnicity, religion, even and sexual orientation, which is not visible, not that obvious, but still it's considered as something exotic, but people can pick on you, they can stick fingers, and like you feel that you're different, you know. It's hard for many tourists when they visit Poland. I mean, it is different, and Warsaw is also different because it's pretty cosmopolitan and business oriented. But when you go to landscapes of Poland, it does happen that that you may feel different it's not even usual that people talk about sex. It's more, we have this tendency in Poland that it has to be either in jokes, it can be vulgar language or very medical language. And Polish people never talk about themselves. I mean, only like close friends, maybe sometimes they share like private stories, but it's mostly people saying about someone who did something. It's never me, never you, because I would never consider you as a sexual being, not to offend you by any chance. And for example, it's really interesting when you're watching the research, sex research done in Poland, that people, what they actually do and what they declare in the questionnaires, they're anonymous, so no one would know who those people were. People still lie about their sexuality. So it's really, it's really hard for me when I hear at the conferences, they mention hard data that, for example, this is statistics for, right, like this, at the moment, girls in Poland lose virginity, which means penis, vagina, sexual intercourse at around age of 18. Mm-hmm. But when you open up this definition, what sex is, you find out that there are so many 13-year-old mothers in Poland, which is interesting because they don't really get that much support, and it's hard. And for example, there are many things in Poland that are illegal. At the moment, they are it's less and less easy for people to get in vitro, or an abortion, for example, is completely illegal. You can't do it in Poland. LGBT stuff, which like lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, you can become a victim of a hate crime very easily if someone who doesn't like this kind of option sees you in the street. So it's not very usual that people hold hands when there are same-sex couples, or even, well, I don't want to make a vision of Poland as like to make a scary picture, but again, my work is, I also work for Campaign Against Homophobia, which is also the biggest national non-governmental organization working with LGBT population. It's more about lobbying and education and changing the current situation in Poland. So while working there, I'm a psychotherapist there, and I usually work with people who are victims of hate crimes, people who were either thrown out of their homes because the parents found out that their son is gay or daughter is lesbian, or people who've been beaten up on the streets by someone who doesn't like, for example. But it's also interesting because we did have people coming in to us. They were not even gay, but for example, a guy wearing green pants, it was considered gay already. So he was attacked. So we have many double standards in Poland, which is kind of sad, because we probably, you know it as well, how it is in San Francisco. So I don't know how it is in Singapore, to be honest, but there is like a shocking contrast when you see how free and enthusiastic about their expressions people can be, and how they are in spaces where tolerance is not that high.
Well, yeah. So you were in Singapore this year, yes, for the International Sexology Conference. What was your impression of Singapore?
Well, I love Singapore. I was almost moving there. I was supposed to be there with you by your side like this month. Well, but I forgot that it's hard to abandon your own business or your own stuff. But I'm absolutely like, Singapore is my favorite Asian city at the moment. And if I was to move somewhere, it would be probably Singapore. But it's also interesting to compare the sexology lectures, because this also happens in Poland when there are conferences, for example, linked to sexual medicine or something like sexology for doctors, which means that there's a lot of, and the same happened in Singapore during the conference. There were lots of lectures about medicalization, erectile dysfunction, injections, like lots of medical approaches. And my way of thinking and my way of working is more holistic. It's more body-mind oriented approach. So I try to avoid pharmaceuticals to heal something. I believe it sometimes takes more time, but you need to do talking or doing some body exercises to find what's really wrong with you, if you're feeling that something's wrong, of course. So that was my impression at the conference. And it wasn't that big, because 2 years ago I was in Brazil for the same Congress, and it was full, I would say. So maybe, I don't know if it's the distance, or maybe that it depends on how international sexology looks like at the moment.
Yeah.
But in 2 years, it will be in Prague, which is very close to Poland. So if anyone who listens to us is interested in the subject, I think it would be a great opportunity to meet there in Prague, in Czech Republic.
Yeah. I think what happens is when you have international conferences, it's just nearer and more convenient for more local speakers to speak. And I did notice that quite a number of the urologists were involved, as well as the medical doctors in Singapore at NUH who call themselves sexologists. So I wasn't able to be part of that conference. However, I was very happy to be able to catch up with you. I think the environment in Singapore is, even though we are, so we're coming up for break. We'll talk more about it after the break.
I'll ask you after the break.
Yes.
Perfect.
Free your mind with Om Times Radio, IOM FM.
What if living didn't have to be so serious?
What if you could move beyond your problems with greater confidence and ease than you've ever imagined?
Throw your labels out the window and join the Irreverent Therapist for practical tips and a very different way of approaching the changes you would like to create.
Marilyn Bradford
and Pam Hodling
have empowered hundreds of people to come out of self-judgment, quit looking to experts, and begin to create the lives they desire.
Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Irreverent Therapist Show.
Hey ladies, do you want to have that good hair day feeling all the time? Gentlemen, would you want your special someone to have that glow, letting you know she is feeling completely satisfied? This feeling and that glow can be yours by embracing your sexual power. So join me, Rachel Kenley, award-winning romance author, on the O-Spot. The O-Spot will guide you to that peak with guest interviews, book discussions, and conversations on the thrills of sexual empowerment. Put the zing back in your life. Come up and see me sometime on the O-Spot, live on Hump Day at 10 p.m. Eastern.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Om Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single Om Times endeavor. Host your show with Om Times Radio Network. Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com. The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution. We're talking about sex positivity in Poland. And just before a break, my colleague and friend, Agata Loewe, she was asking me about the differences or my observations about Singapore, and then we can compare with how it's different with Poland. So for me, being a Singaporean, because I'm immersed in this environment, this is my norm. And what I hear from foreigners, expats or Caucasians who travel a lot is that when they come into Singapore, it's basically an urban city. It's the city where you come in to make money. It's one country, and it's also one state. So it's a very small country, but it's very westernized and economically developed. It's the most westernized and successful country in Asia. So it's really all about money and productivity. And as a result, the people here also are very much driven by money and with their careers. This really affects their sex drive. A lot of people are just overworked, and they are not very connected with their bodies and with their sexuality. As a culture also, we have different cultures, Chinese being the majority. And so what happens is Chinese tends to be a much more economically driven and practical society as well. So when we have small families coming out and traditionally Chinese would have huge families, like they would have 10 kids. And as we become more urbanized, they start having less kids. They start living away from their families, which wasn't the case before. Previously, if you have 3 generations under the same family, it's like considered a real honor. So as they start moving away and having less communities, I think this does affect their sexuality as well, because they are less close with their families and they don't really talk about sex, and they don't really learn from each other. It's not like the kampong days, we call it, like the village days where people would gossip and gather and laugh and joke about sex. Yeah.
And exchange information and educate themselves at the same time, right?
So this doesn't really happen, and then sex being a sensitive subject, people don't talk about it, and so often I hear that I'm the only person in their lives that knows about this sex problem that they have. They don't talk about it with their friends. And I have quite a number of clients. They are self-selecting. People with problems come to me. And the biggest problem that I have is vaginismus, where women cannot have penetrative sex because of phobia of pain. And this just stems from the lack of sex education and lack of any real conversation about it. So on the surface, we look very open and friendly, but if you dig deeper, all of them are actually sexually repressed and shut down. And so I guess the contrast with what you're saying about Poland is that Poland is more or less predominantly the same. Like everybody's white, everybody's Catholic. Here we have different cultures, and the complexity here is that everybody is just going after money and trying to survive, or because Singapore has become very, very expensive over the last few years. So it's not it's not so easy that people would even think about their sexuality. They only think about it if they have a problem, and even then they come in to see me after having the problem for years. And when you have a problem for years, you tend to believe that it's very difficult to overcome. So these are some of the differences.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
When I went
really
to
interesting.
Thank you for asking. When I went to San Francisco, one of the biggest things was the shock that I had of, first of all, the buildings are very organized. They have blocks, blocks of buildings, and they basically build the roads before they build the buildings. Whereas in Singapore, we build the building and then we have the roads around it. So the roads don't make sense, but that's the way things kind of organically develop. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I found about San Francisco is also like the number of homeless people and the dirt, on the streets, which is very different because Singapore actually hired cleaners. And so we are clean, but people don't understand the amount of effort that we put into making sure that the streets are clean. And like having cleaners, which of course, in San Francisco, you don't hear about that. Another thing is the feeling of sexual liberation, where people are free to dress and express themselves in whatever way they want. And it's very much linked to their identity of who they are, especially in San Francisco. And so I started to have the impression that, this was how US was, until I was reminded by my classmates that no, we are the exception. We are not the norm. So don't think all US citizens are like this. And San Francisco is definitely not typical of other cities in the US. And when I went to San Francisco, I had a bit of a culture shock, seeing so much openness and freedom to the point that it was scary. And then what I didn't expect was the culture shock of me when I came back to Singapore and realizing that having opened my eyes and released
and now we
all
have
this,
to transmit the knowledge, right?
To now transmit the burden of it was very much on me, and also the shock of, this was what I didn't know was around me all the time. I just didn't know. I didn't open up my eyes to see. So like the discrimination that we have for people who are gay, it's still illegal to be gay in Singapore. And so, like marital rape is still legal. You can rape your spouse and you can get away with it. So there are things here and there which can be worked on, as I'm sure there are in Poland as well.
It's really, thank you for sharing your experience from San Francisco, because my experience was very similar, coming back and having this kind of mission that if somewhere in the world it can be that well organized, and I'm talking just at the moment only about sexuality, that people can actually be themselves, and it doesn't mean that they're going to be perverts or walking naked and raping each other. I thought that it can be done anywhere in the world, but it's just the effort that you have to put, because in San Francisco there's like very long tradition of building those liberty rights. Which is exception, as you said.
Great. And you are doing it in a big way in Poland. You are actively involved in many organizations, and you are spearheading your initiative in Poland. So that's really remarkable. I think I'm doing a lot less than what you're doing. I'm not actively involved in a lot of groups. I find it very difficult to get into helping or working with the gay communities in Singapore because I'm not gay. And this has been a block. Also, I'm very much of an introvert. A lot of my work with clients is in the evenings, and a lot of activities relating to sexuality, if there is, are also in the evenings. So it has been very difficult for me to be more visible with what I call like the advocacy or the grassroots organizations.
At the moment, it's also different. I used to be much more active than I am now, because most of my energy right now goes to either doing the therapy or organizing workshops, but also team building. At the moment, I have to say that I'm very lucky, because I'm not doing it on my own. I'm surrounded by people who also feel the idea of what is sex positivity, and we support each other and we spread it all together. So it's very young. young initiative, I would say. So I call it a movement, but it's not like hundreds of people who heard about us. I would say that even most of people in Poland don't know about our existence, to be honest.
Yes.
Because first of all, you have to have internet, and you have to have this curiosity of searching for something, because usually, as I said before, people who search are those who have problems, and those who don't have problems, they think it's nothing to be interested about. And I'm trying to make it more like a need of much bigger number of people, because I was one of those people before. I would say I was always interested about human relationships, what works, what doesn't work. If you change the angle of the intercourse, what will happen? And I didn't never know if there was anyone I could talk about it without slut shaming or putting myself as a big joke or entertainment. You know, this nymphomaniac who came to the party and talks about sex to get her attention. And it wasn't at all ever my intention. I was just curious. So I think that recently we started meeting at like people who come to workshops or our events are also people who have this need of treating sex very seriously as a scientific study of sex, who are curious about how things are done, what are the differences between you and me, let's say. Why I can learn so much from you, you can learn so much from me, and from our experiences we can learn wider and wider groups of people who maybe would be really willing to know but are too afraid to ask. So I think it's a great thing that we're both doing, because it's fun. Like when people tell me, "Oh, your work is so interesting," and I'm doing some other work linked, let's say, to, I don't know, business or marketing or accounting, and they say, "Oh, my work is so boring," and I'm thinking, okay, I don't think it's boring, but it's a choice, and I think choosing sexuality as your work is a very interesting choice, and it also shows how you interact with people afterwards, because it's not easy to come out as sexologists at the random parties when people are not into the same subject.
Yeah.
I don't know, how is your experience when you're saying what you're doing, but it's...
I get tired talking about it all the time. So we're up for a break, and we'll talk more about the link between sexuality and spirituality after this break.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times.
Hi, this is Julie Geigel.
I'm Maggie Chula.
And I'm Catherine Glass.
And we're the Psychic Angel Channelers. Join us every week here on Om Times Radio for Angel Talk Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
The angels have heard your call and are here to help.
Are you ready to receive?
Remember your magnificence with Angel Talk Tuesday.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts Yelito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Om Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single Om Times endeavor. Host your show with Om Times Radio Network. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle. Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution. We are with Agata Loewe and we are talking about bringing sex positivity to Poland in today's show. And we are into the last 15 minutes of the show. Time really flies. So far we've been talking about her work in Poland, and you can tell from the show that she's very dedicated to her work. And we also talked about in the last segment the differences between Singapore, San Francisco and Poland. So once again, I'd like to remind you that you can visit her website, sexpositiveinstitute.pl, and also look for her Facebook page. She does organize international trainings with the greatest sexology teachers from all around the world. And she will be organizing, or her group will be organizing, SA and Aspect trainings in May 2016. So May next year. And that will be a great opportunity to meet, network, learn, and love. And if you are interested to find out about Agata personally, you can go to Agata Loewe. That's I'm going to give the characters. That's AGATALOEWE.com. So that's her personal website that you can check out. And you can also look for her and her group on Facebook. So we do need to talk a little bit about the link between sexuality and spirituality. So, Agata, in your opinion, what do you feel is the link between the two?
Well, personally, as most of Polish people, I was raised and baptized in Christian Catholic Church, which is something, I'm not religious at the moment, but usually in Poland, when you say spirituality, it's usually talking about religion or about Catholicism itself. So for some time, I had some resentment in me whenever I felt that I started working with human sexuality as a sexologist. I saw how many people suffer from the ideas they have in their heads about how sex should be or shouldn't be, especially for Polish women. Which is kind of hard for them to be, for example, like the gender roles are pretty traditional, which means that men should be men, women should be women. Everyone knows where their place is, which is not only religious, but also cultural. But I'm working for a couple of years now with Dr. Patty Britton and Dr. Robert Dunlap, the Sex Coach U founders from Los Angeles, and they also work in San Francisco school. And I've learned from them so much about different aspects of spirituality. Also, tantra is different aspect of spirituality. It's not only what you believe in, but how you live your life. And my approach at the moment is very close to the one promoted by Dr. Stella Resnick, which is more or less kind of mindfulness oriented, that how to breathe and stay in touch with your body here and now. Mm-hmm. And this is something really helpful for me to function. And it's not only about sex, but it's also about stress release, how to, when you're, for example, in times of crisis, because you have so much work to do right now, how to ground yourself. Okay, 5 seconds looking at this green leaf of the tree will make you feel calm. And you're here and now. It's not the end of the world if you don't do something right now. So you can focus more on your sensations, on your body. And I think at the moment, this is what spirituality is for me. And what I've learned from Dr. Patty and Dr. Robert is like the meaning of the ceremonies. I love it that it's so delicate or everyone has their own paths, like their own ways of living. So, for example, I will use this. Maybe it's a stupid example, but for example, you're trying to get over someone, and you're willing to, for example, burn something up from this person or put it in the ground. And I'm thinking that it's a ceremony as well of letting go, of closure. So it's not linked to God or the universe, the divine. It could be, of course, but it's more about how you make yourself at peace with the universe or with yourself in the world. So I think that it's really important that once you get this sensation that it's you and the rest of the world, it gives you some peace with other people. And once you link it to sex, it makes you feel a little bit humble that you meet every person every day. Like you're walking on the street, your eyes cross. You you push someone on the subway and you feel the sexual energy, whatever it is. You feel the tension, you feel something coming from your guts, and it can last for 2 seconds. And in your head, you might have had sex, but the person doesn't know about it. And I'm not talking about voyeurism or frotterism on the subway, but I'm talking about your fantasy life that can be very vivid, and it can make your life so much more rich, sexual life more interesting and playful. And that's how I think I understand spirituality, that it's something untouched and undescribable, but it's somewhere around us, and it's more like the flow with you and other people. And with some people you make decision to have sex with, whatever sex is for you, of course. With others you don't. But with the ones that you have decided to have sex, it's so much about connecting to them in your way, of course, as well. And you can connect through this. With some people, I don't know if you have this experience, but with some people, you just connect on this level that you know that something is happening, and it's amazing because it's spiritual and it's not physical. as a contrast, I would say, because when we talk about sex in Western cultures and also in Poland, it's usually about technicalities, how to reach a goal, which is either ejaculation or orgasm or whatever. And I wish sex wasn't about, mechanical stuff. It's more about feeling good about yourself and willing to share the pleasure of yourself with other people, or the person that you find very attractive, or I don't know, attractive, but not also in this beauty kind of way. It's someone you feel connected to. And I'm having this weekend. We're having the slow weekend, which is basically the fair for people to buy Christmas presents, and you can do fashion shopping, etc. And Sex Positive Institute was invited to host the adult kind of district, which will promote our workshops. We'll have some lectures. We'll be showing sex toys by Kinky Winky, which is like the best Polish sex shop, which is open to all kinds of diversities, and it's also educational. It's really interesting how modern sexuality is getting to the mainstream, and how much people need it, how much people are interested in learning about it. So I'm talking about this weekend because we're preparing it right now, and it got on my mind. That I'm really curious how people will react, because it will be the first time that we'll be so much in the open with all the things that we can offer to people.
Yeah. Awesome. Good luck with it. It's very exciting what you're doing.
Thank you. But to be honest, because I'm also thinking about 2016 already. Like last year was the first time that in Poland, Dr. Patty Britton and Dr. Robert Dunlap and me, we did the aspects, which is advanced sexological spiritual experience mostly for people who it's advanced SAR for adults, which is very deep work for people who already work with human sexuality, but to get to yourself, because I don't know how is your experience, but we're usually professionals who we work with people and we forget about ourselves very often. And I'm really excited because we're doing it for the second time in May. And this is after that workshop. It was working in me and making me curious even more about sexuality for another year. You can hear how I'm talking about it right now. I'm so excited. And it would be really great if maybe you could come, and it's people from all around the world come and join us. And I'm so glad that Poland has a chance to experience that, because formal sex education is mostly theoretical.
Great.
And I know I have to go, but there's so many things I want to say. Thank you, Martha,
so thank you so much
me.
for coming on today's show. And I appreciate what you just shared about sexuality and spirituality. So to Agata, it means being present, and there's this quality about spirituality that's not linked to religion. And she talked about this ritual that you could do about releasing past pains, relating to past relationship hurts as an example. And so this has been Eros Evolution. And we had Agata Loewe with us. You can check out her website. That's sexpositiveinstitute.pl. And also her personal website, that's Agata Loewe. That's Loewe. And next week, I will be having Ava, who will be talking about her organization called Creative Sexuality, which provides online sexuality education. So do stay in touch with us. And you can always add Eros Evolution on Facebook. So keep in touch and see you next week.